Shall not comply. A very romantic statement that I'm seeing tossed around a lot without any real understanding of how that statement should be utilized and what that statement actually means. It's actually got history too. It goes all the way back to 1765 with the Stamp Act. Now that's the first time I heard of it. Doesn't mean it was the only time it was ever used, but that's the first time I heard of it. It was also brought in during the slave trade. Federal law mandated that they return the slaves back down to the owners. Shall not comply. So what exactly does shall not comply mean, and how can you utilize that statement? Well, first, you got comply or not comply. Two choices, yes and no. It seems pretty simple, but it's much more complicated than that. For example, when we were telling the Brits that, hey, the Stamp Act is bullshit, and we're not going to comply with it, well, we'd write a letter, and then we'd send over a carrier that would deliver it to them. Obviously, the carrier must be tight-laced, completely compliant, otherwise they'll just arrest him over there. The messenger must always comply. He must be 100% compliant. And now a modern day interpretation of that would be like me on YouTube. I must always comply. I must be 100% compliant.
I must always comply. I must be 100% compliant.
Because say I started pushing the issue, or pushing the belief, or pushing the ideal, shall not comply. The problem is, if I were to get arrested, I would lose my ability to help fight. So, if I push the narrative, shall not comply, there's not going to be people that follow me unless I believe in that narrative. However, I cannot prove that I believe in it without publicly showing me violating the law.
False.
So it's very important for YouTubers not to push the narrative, shall not comply.
False.
Now I'll wear their merch and stuff because I think it's a romantic statement and I like it. However, I will not push onto you, shall not comply, because you guys can't follow me without me believing in the statement I'm pushing onto you. Therefore, you guys are not stupid, so you would want proof that I believe in the statement. The only way I can prove that I believe in the statement is to openly not comply. In front of millions of viewers. You just can't do that, otherwise you lose your power, and you'll lose an asset. Another reason would be like, you just don't want to get involved, so you go completely compliant. There are many reasons why a person would stay compliant. Now let's say you move over to this side, not compliant. This will divide into two different categories. You got private non-compliance, and you got public non-compliance. Private non-compliance is the exact same thing as compliance. Because shall not comply is a public demonstration. The whole point here is to get public support. Without public support, you have nothing. You have to gain public support. Also the reason why the messenger must be 100% compliant. Because otherwise the public will look at him and be like, well, Dude, they raided his house and he got caught with machine guns. He's not a very good person. If they get taken down, it must be in an unlawful fashion. Like something ridiculous that the public can latch onto and be like, okay, that's ridiculous. Not, okay, we went into his house and we found 5 SBRs and a machine gun. So private non-compliance is no different than compliance. They are the exact same thing. You snickering to yourself while you're drilling a third hole in your basement does absolutely nothing for the Second Amendment movement. Nothing at all. If anything, it might actually be worse than complying completely. Now you've got public non-compliance, which will break down into a couple different categories. Number 1, the threat of non-compliance. I believe that was actually how we won the pistol brace thing. There was a comment section to the ATF, and the general consensus was, if you make pistol braces illegal, that by de facto makes any barrel shorter than 16 inches illegal. Therefore, because the upper is already illegal, because there's no way to have that in a pistol configuration, I might as well just attach that to a lower with a third hole. Because why not? It's already illegal. It's not going to be more illegal. Because it's illegal or it's not. If you guys get rid of the pistol braces and make that upper illegal, I'm not going to destroy my own property. I'm going to go and attach that to a lower with a third hole in it. And that was the general consensus, and the threat of not compliance must have been big enough to where the ATF backed down. Almost immediately. They didn't even finish the comment section. They just backed down. They're like, okay, that was a stupid move. We surrender, we give. The next one, demonstration of non-compliance. This is way, because I don't actually have this in order and shit that should be done, but this would be like the last step. You have full public support, the public's behind you, so you openly, in front of everyone, break the law and show them that their law is not just, it's not constitutional, therefore it is void. But before you get to that, there is support of somebody that's non-compliant. See, that's where we really come in on YouTube channels. That's where YouTube channels shine. Organization and support. For example, the keycard guy. That was a great example. We put a lot of public support behind him. If we can put public support behind, say, the next guy, because it's really hard to find the cases. You have to find a case that the public can generally latch onto. So, I'm just going to default to the keycard one, because that's the best case scenario. There is only one charge he's got. They didn't like go into his house and find child porn, or a bag of weed, or narcotics, or anything like that. All they have is one single charge. This way the public can go laser focused on that particular charge. So say, for example, somebody gets caught with, there was actually 2 great examples in Colorado. Texas, they're doing some, excuse me because I didn't research up on this, but basically it's, if a silencer is made in Texas, it is not eligible for federal control. At some point, somebody will get busted with one of those silencers, and if that's their only charge they have, that would be a case to latch onto. That would be a case to get public support behind, because he's close enough to being legal where we can argue the fact that, what are you guys talking about? That's unconstitutional. 1, the Fed has no jurisdiction in the state. 2, it's a state law that it's legal. You guys can do nothing about it. Get him support and help him win that case. Get get public support rolling, get the ball rolling. That's what YouTubers need to do with their power. They need to start latching onto these cases and raise public support for it and be like, this is unconstitutional. He got busted with a machine gun. There's nothing in the Constitution that says you can't have a machine gun. Not to mention a $250,000 fine plus 10 years in prison for not paying a $200 tax stamp. How is that reasonable? We need to support this guy. He needs a good defense so he can try to beat this, because that machine gun is not illegal. Not to mention, it is completely absurd to have that kind of a penalty behind a $200 tax stamp. If we can support the people that get busted on clean cases, obviously, you got to pick through it and make sure that you're actually picking out somebody you can represent without making the whole scenario look bad. That's how you do it. That's what YouTube is for. You must stay compliant. You cannot preach the message, shall not comply, because if you don't not comply, then you're a hypocrite and you don't believe in what you're talking about, and nobody is going to follow you unless you can prove what you're talking about, and you can't prove what you're talking about without making yourself a martyr. So, as a YouTuber, you must stay 100% compliant. You absolutely must not preach the message, shall not comply. Now, what you can do is you can support those who do get caught up not complying. That is where your power and attention should go towards. That's how to help it, because this would be like step one. Well, actually, step one is threat of non-compliance. It's also why you, as a YouTuber, don't ever want to do the threat of non-compliance, because if you're a complete idiot, you will say where your line in the sand is. Should that line get crossed, your job, your power as a YouTuber is over. Because you haven't went to war yet, you haven't not complied, therefore you're lying, and you don't know what you're talking about. Because if your line in the sand is crossed, then you're no longer complying. So if you say your line in the sand is X, Y, or Z, we get to that point, you can no longer make YouTube videos because you're either full of shit or now you're an ATF target and you've lost your ability to use your power for something good. So the first step would be threat of non-compliance. You don't have to do something deliberate. Again, like the pistol brace thing. People wrote the ATF, they're like, hey, if this upper's illegal, why would I not put it on a lower with a third hole? Because it's not going to get any more illegal. It's still illegal, period. It's either legal or it's not legal.
That feels like an oversimplification.
So threat of non-compliance, then the next step would be support anybody that is non-compliant and gets caught. And after that works out and you get plenty of public support, then an open demonstration of non-compliance. Private non-compliance is a joke. That is the exact same thing as compliant. But anyway, I just thought I would break it down for you because, again, I'm hearing this shall not comply be tossed around a lot. And it is. It's a very romantic statement. I like saying it. It sounds good. But when you openly push it, unless you are not complying, you don't believe in what you're pushing.